All right, so we are in collect requirements process, right? We are trying to collect requirements from our stakeholders, right? And I explained a lot of tools. There are 16 tools here, 16 tools and technique here, right? And most of the tools and technique I already discussed. So most probably multi-criteria addition analysis. So this we discussed. From today we'll discuss other tools. So please remember, for a single project or a particular project, you may not require all the tools and techniques. All right. You have to tailor as per your project requirement. Which tools is feasible for your project, that you have to decide. But what PMBOK actually tried to find out the mostly used tools and technique in the industry in project management, and they actually mentioned in PMBOK, so that in any industry, project managers are using different tools. So all tools are actually mentioned, try to mention here. So it is not mandatory that for every project you have to use all the tools and techniques. You have to select as per your project requirement. All right. So I will start with data representation, affinity diagram. Most probably I discussed about affinity diagram. Affinity means ashokti or relevancy. Depending upon the relevancy or category of the requirements, we can graphically present the requirements like a tree structure. Say hardware, what are the hardware requirements we need? What are the software requirements we need? So in this way, if we arrange the requirements, then it looks like tree. All right. So that what we are doing actually here, we are actually categorizing the requirements and arranging those the requirements as per those category. That is known as affinity diagrams, and generally it look like tree structure. Then mind mapping. We discuss mind mapping in a stakeholder management chapter. So that is also a graphical representation. The main idea we put in center, and then we try to branch out that idea in more detail, right? And it looks like this. So from the main idea, it is actually branching out in different branches, and in any branch, if we go further, we will get more details. Okay, then let me talk about interpersonal and team skills. So these are actually soft skills, all right? So this is very important. As a project manager, you have to be a good facilitator. You need to know how to facilitate any workshop, any meeting, any team members sitting together, how you will facilitate so that everyone can participate, everyone can generate idea, everyone can put his agreement or argument in the meeting without any fear. Very important is without any fear. So you have to create a safe environment for everyone, where everyone can put their own idea without any fear. All right. So that environment you have to set. That is actually facilitation technique. Then let me discuss about this one, nominal group technique, or in short, we can say NGT, nominal group technique. So this is new here. This is very new. We have not seen earlier this. So what is nominal group technique? So can you hear me? Are you listening me?
Yes.
All right. আবার কেউ কল দিল নাকি? আমাকে শোনা যাচ্ছে তো ভালো মতো না?
Okay. We can hear you loudly. Yeah.
Okay. So NGT, nominal group technique. That means we discussed here brainstorming. See brainstorming here. So brainstorming actually what? Brainstorming actually generating ideas. any idea, any person feeling that idea he will present, we try to collect all the ideas from all the team members. So we generate ideas in brainstorming sessions. So there is relation between brainstorming session and nominal group technique. So after brainstorming session, in nominal group technique, what we do, we actually prioritize the ideas, which are the top priority idea, which are the most appropriate idea, most important idea. So what can I say? Brainstorming plus prioritization of those ideas, that is actually known as NGT. All right. So brainstorming is only generating idea and collecting that idea. But when we are talking about nominal group technique, what we are saying, we have brainstormed, then we are prioritizing depending about the importance, then fitness, and other uh, other things, other criteria. We actually trying to prioritize the ideas. That is known as nominal group technique tool. So this tool we can also use. Then observation and conversation we discuss in stakeholder chapter. Observation, that means sometimes when I'm going to collect requirements, not that everyone can say what they are doing or what their requirement is. Not everyone can by speaking or by telling or by documenting cannot say the requirements. Sometimes what we can do, we can actually can observe. That is also known as job shadowing. We can do job shadowing. We can closely observe the person who is working, and from that observation we can get the idea what are the things that we can provide him so that his work or his requirement can be fulfilled by this project. So that is known as observation. Observing someone's activity, how he is working, we can collect requirement. That is known as observation. In PMBOK, you will also see job shadowing. Eh? Same thing is known as job shadowing. And conversation. This is also a requirement collection tool. We can easily collect requirements by conversation with the stakeholders. Okay, next two tools. 7 is context diagram. I will discuss this in later slides because there is a diagram in that slide. We can easily can understand what context diagram is from that slide. Okay, so I will discuss later in the slides. Let me discuss about prototype. Can anyone say what is prototype? What is prototype? Prototyping we use in our day-to-day conversation also. What is prototype? And in IT, this term is very frequently used in software development. Sabban, any idea what is prototype?
A similar product, but with less features and but achieving the same purpose. Something like this.
Yes, right.
Model.
So, yeah, model or sample. বাংলা যেটাকে আমরা বলি নমুনা, not the real product, but the sample of the product. So in construction engineering, we also use this. Say, for the bridge, right? For the bridge, we have seen the videos, how cars are moving over for the bridge, and gas line, then railway. We are seeing using simulators, right? So that thing actually known as prototype. That is not the real thing, but that is a sample of the real thing. So that is known as prototype. So that is also a great way to collect requirements. If you can show the prototypes to the customers or stakeholders, then seeing that prototype, they can generate a lot of good ideas, and you can also get or collect requirements from the stakeholders. So prototype is a great tool to collect requirements. And context diagram that we will discuss later. So output is requirement documentation. This is collect requirements, the output is requirement documentation. That means after applying all these tools and technique on these inputs with the stakeholders, the requirements we collected, we records or write all those requirements in the document. That document name is requirements documentation. All right. So this is the main output of this process. And another output is requirement traceability matrix. Traceability. Traceability means where from we have collected the requirement, in which meeting, which document, from which stakeholder, and by which testing and say acceptance criteria or other things. From a requirements collection to requirement delivery, the whole life cycle of requirements we can trace in requirement traceability matrix. All right. And for example, where from we have calculated the requirement, then this requirement is connected with which project objective. All right. Then which work package, through which work package or task will deliver these requirements. And these requirements is having which kind of test criteria or acceptance criteria. And finally, delivering that requirements to the stakeholder. So this full life cycle of the requirement is traced in this document, requirement traceability matrix document. So this is also a great tool that we can use. If you can use this requirement traceability matrix, so we have already discussed that project actually fails for one of the main reasons of project failure is not understanding the requirement properly, not understanding stakeholders' requirement and not fulfilling stakeholder requirements. The main reason, one of the main reasons of project failure. So if you can trace end to end of requirements lifecycle, then actually at any time, if there is any issue related to requirements, we can easily solve the issue. So that is a great tool that can help us. So we'll see a template of this requirement traceability matrix in later slides. All right, so let me go, especially we'll see the context diagram and few things we can discuss. Yes, so we discussed about voting technique, right? Three kind of voting technique: unanimity, 100% vote. I think you can remember 100%, right? Majority, more than 50%. And plurality, if we cannot get vote of 100% or 50%, if we cannot use these two techniques, then we can use plurality. Say 40%, we have got 40% vote, 30% vote, 20% vote. Then the maximum vote we have got, we can take decision on based on that. That is actually plurality. And another technique is autocratic. Right? That means listening, not the team, just by yourself, being a boss or being a project manager, you can say that I want this or I want that. So that is actually autocratic. So that is not actually preferred decision-making technique. So always please remember, whenever you have to take decision, it is always better to involve your team and try to make consensus among the team in any decisions. So what will happen then, actually you can easily get the buy-in of your team members. Otherwise, if you want to push any decision on them, then actually then you have to sell your idea. But when you will keep involve everyone, then easily you will get the buy-in of your team. All right. So there is some example on affinity diagram, category wise, arranging your ideas or requirements. That is actually affinity diagram. And mind mapping, this is mind mapping. All right. The conference in the main idea, then we actually branching out in different sub branches. All right. And in each branch, you will get detail. Okay. So NGT. So there is a very good technique explained in PMBOK. And I have summarized here: brainstorming plus voting. That is actually known as nominal group technique. So you can follow these steps when you do nominal group technique with your team. And observational conversation, as I mentioned, job shadowing, and sometimes it is also known as participant observer. Participating with the person who is working, you can also collect requirements. Participating with him, how he is doing. So personally, you can involve with the person, with the team, and try to understand their problem, their pain points, and from there you can collect requirements. So this term, please, one thing please remember, job shadowing, participants observer, these two things are actually mentioning observation. Sometimes directly observation tool will not be mentioned. Rather, you can find job shadowing or participant observer. That means actually it is actually mentioning the observation tool. All right. So sometimes you can see this kind of variations in your exam questions. All right. We have talked about facilitation technique. As a project manager, you have to be a good facilitator. So in the industry, there are different techniques, facilitation technique used, and they are named differently in different industries. For example, joint application design or development, JAD, that is actually used in software development. When the facilitation technique they use within their team, that is known as JAD, joint application design or development. And quality function deployment, QFD, this facilitation technique is used in manufacturing. This is also known as voice of the customer, VOC. So in the manufacturing industry, the facility technique is known as what? QFD, quality function deployment. Number 3, user story. User story. In Agile, I discussed in the last class about Agile. In the Agile, all requirement is collected in a single document. And the name of the document is backlog, right? Can you remember? All the requirements is collected and written in a single document. That the name of the document is product backlog or simply backlog. So, and that backlog actually, they write down the main features of the product and they actually divide that features into user stories. All right. So user story means, the term is very interesting, right? User story. That means what are the stories? What are the requirements of a stakeholder? They actually collect the requirements by listening their stories, listening the stakeholder stories. And they actually use a special format. There is an example of this format. Let me write down that here. This format is actually in Agile, they use as a role. I want so that benefit. Yeah? So as a role, for example, as a customer, I want to say, I want to find out the best product or best sold book in this month and month, so that I can buy the book. So this way they actually try to collect requirements from the stakeholders. So try to define different roles of the project, of the stakeholders, of the users, and this is actually action. What he want to do with this system or with this product, and what he will get benefit using this product. So this way actually they try to collect all the requirements or try to break down the features into stories. So there is example of that here. So this diagram you see, context diagram. That means this is also a great requirement collection tool, context diagram. So let me explain this a bit. So
Reza
here
bhai,
what we are, yes, please.
before moving on, basically backlog is for agile, right? And in terms of predictive, what can we say? The backlog
Requirement documentation
requirement
and
document.
finally actually project scope statement.
Okay.
Requirement documentation and project scope statement, both actually part of backlog.
Okay. Thank you, Reza bhai. Thank you.
All right. So here you see we are trying to develop a HR, develop a recruit job. What I say, HR talent management system for a company. HR talent management system, like a website, like a BD job, like BD jobs. So you know most of the organizations, the big organizations, they are having their own job portal, right? Job portal. So there is a context diagram of organizations, ABC company's job portal. So you see who are the actors actually? These are the actors. Hiring managers, internal associates, internal full-time and part-time contractors. These are actually internal stakeholders or internal actors who will work in this job portal. All right. And in the right side, these are actually external actors. And what actually they will do with this system. So these are internal users, those are the right side, the external users. And see, these are actually actions, what they want to do. Internal user profile, that means internal users, they can create their own profile in the system. And internal HR people, they can post job, all right. And full-time or part-time employees, they can actually apply on the job. And externally, external job posting. Job also post for the external people. So external people, they can actually see the job postings and they can also create their profile, and for any job, if that match with their profile, they can apply for the job. So these are the actors, and what are the main activities they are going to perform using this talent management system or job portal that is actually drawn in this context diagram. So when you will draw this context diagram, what will happen? You can easily understand what are the requirements to develop this job portal. So this is also a great tool to collect requirements. And I already talked about prototype. We can use 2D, 3D models as I uh, explained you for both the bridge. We can use simulations. Storyboarding. Storyboarding, that is actually used where? In cinematography, right? In the film or creating advertisement. What we do? We try to create some storyboard, handwritten pictures, which scene, like how the scene will look like. So we try to design that scene using freehand or some tools, and that is actually known as storyboarding. Then actually we film that scene with the real actors. So that is now known as storyboarding. So storyboarding also a prototype. So in PMP exam, you can see, you can maybe find some questions which actually mentioning about uh, film industry or cinematography. And in the situation, they may ask which kind of tool in cinematography used. So from that scenario, you have to understand actually PMI trying to make us understand that that is also a prototype kind of tool. So mockups is another prototype tools that is used in software firms. Mockups, or sometimes it is known as wireframes. All right, wireframes. there are some software tool. Using those tools, you can easily design low fidelity or low detail of the design, how the page will look like, how the login screen will look like, how the product will be shown in the product page, how the detail page will be shown. So those kind of mock-up you can create with hand drawing type of tool. So that is actually known as wireframes or mockups. So in software industry, these mockups is used, frequently used. This is also a great tool to show the stakeholders what we are going to build, and also we can get easily feedback from them, which will help us to better furnish our product. All right.
Reza bhai, in the context diagram, what is going to be the output of the business system from the business system? It is the job or something. Output of context diagram.
Output of context diagram is the actually diagram where mainly there will be three, four elements. One is the actors and what are the actions they are going to do from this system, and also the flow between the actors and also with the system. So these things will be the element of context diagram, and the main output is the actually diagram, how the system is going to work and what is the connection among the actors and different activities. That is actually the output of context diagram. From there, from that drawing, you can easily understand the requirements, the detailed requirements. So
Okay.
in a general practice, we sometimes what we do when we face any problem, we try to draw freehand so that we can understand the complex scenarios. So context diagram will in this way help you to understand any complex things easily graphically.
Okay, Reza bhai.
All right. Okay, so in the requirement documentation, you can categorize or arrange the requirements based on these categories. You can identify business requirements, stakeholder requirements, solution requirements. Actually, at the beginning of this process, I discussed this. So after collecting all the requirements, you can arrange those requirements in these categories. That will help you to better execute your project. Then project requirement. That means these all are actually product requirements, product related project feature and functionalities. And also you have to identify project requirements. Then how detailed will be the project plan, stakeholder register, which kind of stakeholder register we are going to use, what will be the communication plan. So these are the project requirements. In software industry, you can use coding standard, what standard we will follow. So all these are actually project requirements. Transition and readiness requirements, we discussed about this, and quality requirements is very important. So after collecting the requirements, in the requirement documentation, you can arrange your content using these outlines. And as I mentioned about requirement traceability matrix, end-to-end tracing of the requirements, you can use this template. So you can put an ID for each requirements and put the requirement document description. This requirement actually meeting which business need, and this requirement is tagged with which project objective and WBS deliverable. That means we'll talk about this WBS. WBS means the final deliverable. That means which deliverable if we create, then the requirement will be fulfilled. The customer requirement will be fulfilled. That is actually deliverable. That deliverable, if we can deliver this deliverable, then this requirement will be fulfilled. Product design. Is it connected with any product design? Development and test cases. As I mentioned, test cases. Test case, why we are using test case? To meet the acceptance criteria set by the customers. So if you can say there are 3-4 test cases related to this 1.0 or 001 requirement. So after passing all these test cases, you can say that the requirement is fulfilled and customer is going to accept this requirement. So we are actually tracing all the requirements from the beginning to end. That means delivering to the customers. So this is a sample template, but you can add as many columns as you want to uh, trace your requirements. For example, I can put here another column to mention who are the stakeholders from where I have get the requirements, who was the stakeholder. Then I can also add another column from which document I have got the requirements, or from which workshop, which meeting I have got the requirements. So in this way, you can actually arrange this template as per your need. So this is a great tool to actually end-to-end trace your requirements. Okay, so our process is finished. Any question, Rajan?
কথা বেজে আসতেছে।
এই আর কারো ডিস্টার্ব হচ্ছে নাকি? না, ঠিক আছে,
আমাদের তো ক্লিয়ার আছে।
ক্লিয়ার আছে ভাইয়া।
ক্লিয়ার আছে না? আজকে মোবাইল ডাটা ইউজ করতেছি যেহেতু ওয়াইফাইতে মাঝে মাঝে গোলমাল হয়। ঠিক আছে, তাহলে we are now starting another new process, define scope. So what we did so far, first process was plan scope management. Second process was collect requirements. So we have collected all the requirements. Now our responsibility as a project team is to refine. I'm using the term refining all the requirements that we have collected in the requirement documentation and make project scope statement. What is project scope statement? That is actually final and formalized. That actually we mention, in Bangladesh we use SOW, this term, SOW, scope of work, or sometimes especially in government project, we use terms of reference. This is actually this one, project scope statement. So now as a team, so far what we did, we have trying to collect using different tools and technique requirements from the stakeholders. Now our duty is to make a scope statement or a scope of work or term of reference document, which will be our base document to develop the product or service or result. All right. So that's why what we are doing here, we are see what is the main input here, requirement documentation. That means all the requirements we have put here, right? From the last process, all the requirements we collected and we write this document, requirement documentation. So this is the main input here. All right, so please highlight this one. This is the main input. So using these tools and technique, our main output will be the project scope statement, the final requirement, formalized or refined document. That will be our base for the product, service, or result that we are going to develop. All right, or going to build.
Reza bhai, are you telling refine? Sorry, Reza bhai, are you telling refine document? Refine.
Yeah, refine from the requirement documentation. Refine and final document.
Okay, thank you.
Where actually that main person or team who will work behind this, actually the project team, they actually now from the collect requirement documentation, they will keep the scope statement for themselves. All right, so that will be the base document for the product or service development. So what are the tools we can use? We can use expert judgment. Then we can use alternative analysis. What is alternative analysis? Alternative analysis is, we mentioned this, we discussed this, plan A, B, or C. So when we are finaling the scope, maybe customers or stakeholders expected one requirements. So maybe it is not possible to give the same requirement or fulfill the requirement. So you can propose the option B to the stakeholder. So if option B is agreed by the stakeholder, then you can provide that plan B, so that customer can use to meet their expectation. Then multi-K decision analysis that we already discussed. If there is any decision related argument comes, then we can use multi-K decision analysis to finalize our scope. What we are doing, what we are trying to do, we are trying to finalize the scope of the project, setting the boundary of the project, right? Boundary of the project, and also setting the acceptance criteria against all the requirements that is collected here. All right. So who will actually set the acceptance criteria? Mainly, team will ask the stakeholders to set the acceptance criteria. So working with the stakeholders for each and every requirements, every scope statement, team will identify which will be the acceptance criteria. All right. In Agile, there is a term that is known as definition of done, DOD. You can find this term in PMBOK also, definition of done. So when we can understand that our task or our work is complete, so for that, we will decide that. Mainly customer will decide. So you have to involve your customer and also your team to find out acceptance criteria for every scope or every requirement that is actually collected in a scope statement. All right. So one of the important thing of this process is define a scope process is to finalize the acceptance criteria or definition of done, so that after producing or building or creating or developing the requirement or a scope, you can show the customer, and if all the acceptance criteria are met, then they will accept the requirement as done. It is done. Okay. So you have to ensure that done is done. All right. This is interesting term. Done is done. That means in DOD you have said what is done for this requirement. So you have to ensure that done is done. All those acceptance criteria are met by your project team. Facilitation, just we discussed, right? Facilitation. This is one tool that we will not see anywhere else. This thing is very important. When I will say that this tool only used in this process, those special tools you have to remember. You will get one question from this tool, product analysis. So what is product analysis? That means you are now finalizing the scope of your product that you are targeting. So this product analysis you can use only for those projects which projects are creating products, not for service or result. Those projects which are actually involved with product development, then you can analyze the product analysis. You can use this product analysis tool. For example, you are trying to develop a mobile device. So what can I do? You can analyze other available mobiles in the market independently, or you can, with your team, you can discuss. So what are the features and functionalities should a modern mobile have? So in this way, you can do product analysis, and those feature and functionality you can add to develop your product. So this tool is very special tool used only this define scope process, and it is actually only used when the project will deliver product as an output. Then you can use this product analysis tool. So after using these tools and technique, especially on requirement documentation, we are creating project scope statement. And this is the base document for your further project activity. All right. And this requirement documentation you see, while you are doing this, if you see you need to update anything about this requirement documentation, you can update the requirement documentation. Okay, let me show you what are the content of project scope statement. Let me show you. There is a slide on that. See, this is the content of project scope statement. So here actually it is descriptive, and here it is shown in figure. So this slide is very important, very, very important for PMP exam. In the PMP, PMBOK, there are only 5-6 documents content outline is given. One is business document. What will be the content of business document? Another one is benefit management plan. That these two documents we talked about these two documents in the first chapter, and we discussed what are the content of that documents. And these are another two documents. One is project charter. So we have discussed about project charter in integration management chapter, right? So project chapter should have minimum this content outline, right? So we have already discussed this, and we have also seen a sample from the Rita Malkahi book. So in this chapter, we are talking about project scope statement in this process. So what we will have in the project scope statement? Let us discuss project scope description. That means this is the detailed scope of work, or TOR, for the whole project. So that is known as project scope description. This can be based on the project. This can be a 500-page document, or if it is a small project, that can be a 10 pages document. All right. So this is actually project scope description. And project deliverables. What are the main deliverables after the project you will deliver to the customer? That is actually project deliverables. And as I discussed acceptance criteria, so what are the definition of done for each scope that you have to fix here. Otherwise, when you will complete the project, there may arise a lot of conflict with the stakeholders if you don't set the acceptance criteria. So this is the right time to set acceptance criteria for each scope. In Agile, this is known as definition of done. And also project exclusions. Why project exclusions? One of the main target of this chapter was what is not defining what is in the project and what is not in the project. So when you are setting the scope, you clearly should mention to everyone that these are not part of the project delivery. As for example, you are developing a website. So when you are developing a website, you can clearly mention that this website will be only in English language. It will not support Bangla language or Spanish language or any other language. So if you don't mention these project exclusions, what will happen? In my project, for example, in one of my projects, what happened? I developed the website in English. Then when I have everything is ready, when I have got to deliver the project, then customer is saying the website should also be in English. And there is a switch button. If I click on Bangla, then it will show in Bangla. If I click on English, it will show in English. But that was not mentioned in anywhere in the document. But as it is not mentioned, what happened? I have to finally deliver that. But if you can write this at the beginning when you are fixing the scope, that these are the things that is actually excluded from the project delivery. So you have to learn how to say no. This is very important. How to say no. These are not the part of the project that you have to mention in project exclusions. So if there is any argument, any conflict that rise at the beginning of the project, not at the end of the project, that will be costly. All right. So sometimes simple questions comes in the PMP exam. Acceptance criteria, part of which document? Or project exclusion is part of which document? So if you can remember this figure, from this figure you can easily answer, this is the part of project scope statement. Okay. So for each document, especially 4 or 5 documents, content is outlined in PMBOK. So you have to actually clearly understand what each document content, so that you can easily answer the questions. Okay, all right. So let me just go to next process. Create WBS. Create WBS. All right. For that, I actually share another document with you. I'm stopping share here, and I am opening my Word file. And let me explain what is WBS. Uh, let me open up the Word file and share that Word file with you. Share screen. Okay. All right. Can you see my Word file?
Yes.
Okay. All right.
Yes, yes.
All right. So let me use a simple diagram hierarchy. Hierarchy. All right. So this one. All right. So WBS one of the main component or main element of PMBOK. And for every project, WBS very critical, very important. WBS mean work breakdown structure. What is the main concept behind WBS? The main concept is, as a human being, we cannot actually develop the whole thing at once. All right. So if you want to build a home, it is not possible to set the home somewhere else and just put it in our land. That is not possible. What we do, we actually first develop the pile. We do the piling, then we do the foundation, then we do the framing. So part by part, we deliver the project, right? Component wise. That means the whole project we break down in a small component. In every project we do like this, because the whole thing you cannot do at a time. So for better manageability and for better management, we actually break down the whole project into smaller components. This idea is known as creating WBS, work breakdown structure. For example, I'm say we are trying to arrange a conference. Our project is arranging a conference. So what we are doing, let me delete this. Okay. So what are the sub-component of conference? Without that, this conference will not be possible. Can we brainstorm? Let us brainstorm together. So to make a conference project successful, what are the components we need? Can anyone say? Let's brainstorm together. One is venue, right?
Venue. Yeah.
For the conference, we need to set a venue, right? Then another important thing is participants. Without participants, you cannot make a conference successful. Then another thing is speakers, right? So when you are arranging conference, there will be some speakers who will actually speak in the conference. So this is another very important component. Then anything else?
Food.
Food. Because in every meeting we need food, right? So food is another important component. Then any other component?
ফার্নিচার লাগবে স্যার, বসার জন্য কিছু লাগবে।
That actually covered in venue. We will select a venue as per our requirements. Participant is speakers, food.
Transportation, do you need?
ইলেকট্রিসিটি লাগতে পারে স্যার।
Electricity, that actually part of venue. So when we will select venue, everything should be there. All the logistics support we should be with the venue. Transportation can be another big thing if we provide transport to the participant or the speakers. Any other thing? As we are arranging conference, there can be
Set a program schedule.
Event schedule or program schedule. That is another important thing, right? The event schedule. All right. So these are the components. Oh, what is this? Delete. Okay. So these are the 5 components, right? Okay. So can you divide this component into sub-component? Can you divide venue into sub-component?
Yes, yes. As an option.
Huh? What can be the sub-component of venue? One can be, say, survey. We need to find out which venue is appropriate for us. So we need to do some survey or research, right? So survey can be a sub-component of venue. And another subcomponent can be selection. After researching all the available venues, we have to select which venue we are going to finalize. So selection can be another component, sub-component of venue. Okay, then can we divide this participant into sub-component? Any idea how can we divide?
মেল ফিমেল হতে পারে।
Gender sensitive.
হ্যাঁ
কোনো
Okay.
স্পেসিফিক কোনো মানে এটাকে কি বলে যে মানে মানে কোনো
অথরিটি থাকতে পারে।
Okay, right. But different categories of participants, like maybe say students.
জি স্যার।
Students. Then can be professionals, right? তারপরে সে entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs. আমরা এমন একটা ইভেন্ট অ্যারেঞ্জ করছি। So see, we have divided this participant into 3 subcategories or sub-component, right? Then speakers. Can you divide this speaker?
কোন টপিক নিয়ে কথা হবে বা স্পিকারসদের মানে তাদের থেকে কি বলে মানে আগের এক্সপেরিয়েন্স বা ওরকম ওয়াইজ যদি আলাদা করে।
What will be the topics for the speakers?
Keynote speakers.
Then keynote speaker we can, or panel speakers, there are a lot of categories actually. Topics hote pare panel speaker, keynote speaker will be the keynote speaker. Then panel hote pare na, will participate in the panel. So these are the sub-component of speakers. So see what is happening actually when you are dividing this speaker into sub-component. What is happening now? We can clearly see what this speaker is all about and what are the things that is required to make this speaker a speaker component fruitful or appropriate, right? Then say food. If you want to break down the food, what can you do?
ফুড অনেক সময় দেখা যায় যে কোনো কোম্পানি বা কোনো এদেরকে কন্ট্রাক্ট সাব কন্ট্রাক্ট দেওয়া হয় যে ওই হিসেবে যদি ক্যাটাগরাইজ করে যে আমি কাদেরকে দিচ্ছি।
ফুডের মধ্যে স্যার ড্রিঙ্কস থাকতে পারে, আবার ধরেন যে
স্ন্যাক্স, টি, মেইন ফুড,
স্ন্যাক্স, ব্রেকফাস্ট এগুলো হতে পারে।
So we can set menu, right? What are the menus we are going to deliver? And also we can also a component who will be the supplier, or who will actually arrange everything. So menu and say the supplier, because we will actually involve some supplier. They will arrange the
catering,
and they also serve the food, right? So menu and supplier selection, right? Then let's come into event schedule. So what can I do? Event schedule. That means, as we have already discussed, there can be a keynote speaking, right? So keynote speaking hote pare, then panel discussion hote pare, then some group activity hote pare, right?
Case study, group activity,
right? So this way we can divide into sub-components. You see, when I'm dividing the into sub-components, it is actually helping us to visualize the whole project. then we can easily understand what are the things we need to do to make this conference project successful. So this is the beauty of WBS. If you can develop a detailed and good WBS, then actually your project will be successful. And lot of things depends on this WBS. So where from we are creating, so the scope in scope statement, everything was there in written format, in descriptive format. But now what we are doing, we are actually trying to define that scope into graphical format so that everyone can understand and we can easily visualize and we can easily plan. This is known as actually WBS. The whole thing is known as WBS. And the process is known as create WBS. And we are talking about the process create WBS. So after doing create WBS process, what we will get, we will get the WBS. All right. So if we want, we can actually subdivide this survey into some more smaller parts, right? So let me talk about some rule of thumb to develop a good or better WBS for your project. So first, see, the whole presentation is actually tree, right? This is a tree. So WBS can be presented, mostly used in the industry as tree, like this, in this way. If you explore PMBOK, this WBS chapter, you will see 4 or 5 sample examples are given. All are actually presented this way. But there are other ways to present this WBS. Another is already you have learned, that is actually mind mapping. We can also use mind mapping to create this WBS. Another is we can use outline. What is outline? We actually generally use outline. Most of the time we use outline. What is outline?
আউটলাইনটা তো স্যার কি কি কাজগুলো আমরা করব সেটার একটা লিস্ট।
No, say right, please. So if I develop an outline from conference, how can we do that? Let me show you. Conference, right? Then what we can do? This is the outline. So venue, right? Then the participants, right? Then speakers. Then under venue, what can we do? We can outline like this, right? Survey and selection. So this is the thing we actually use, most use in our projects, this outlining. So what we are seeing here, there is a relation between all the components. What is the common relation? That is all are actually parent child, right? These two are child of this venue parent, right? Are you getting me?
Yes, sir.
And participant parent is having 3 childs, speakers having 3 childs, food having 2 child, and event schedule having 3 child, right? And conference is the grandparent of everything, right? So everywhere we are seeing parent-child relation. So there is a rule to create WBS that you can apply for your project. The name of the rule is 100% rule. What is 100% rule? What I'm saying, 100% rule. Let me explain the 100% rule. This is a great tool or rule of thumb that you can use in designing your WBS. When we are breaking venue into child, what we did, we have got 2 child, survey and selection. So when we will break down a major component into sub-component, parent to child, you have to find all the child or all the sub-component, so that if you can do this 2 sub-component, then 100% of venue requirement will be achieved. All right. If you can complete students, professionals, and entrepreneurs 100%, these 3, then participant related everything will be achieved. Are you getting me? So in this way, you have to break down parent to child or major component into sub-component. So if you find that any component is missing, for example, in food, menu, supplier, and say we have missed another component, what? Say, for example, that is actually service. Supplier will provide us the food, but who will serve? So that component we have missed, for example. Then what happened? If we only do this, the food requirement will be not fulfilled by 100%. That means this component was missing. That's why 100% of food requirements is not fulfilled. So when we are breaking down into subcomponent, all right, this breaking out, this term is known as decomposing. What we are doing actually, we are decomposing a parent into child or a big component into subcomponent. So this is known as per the PMBOK lingo, that is known as actually decomposing or breaking down. So see, if you follow the 100% rule for breaking each component into subcomponent, then nothing will be missed. So what we are doing, actually, this is a planning activity. We are trying to identify all the deliverables that is required to make our conference project successful. So if I miss any component, I will miss to achieve 100% satisfaction of food element or component of this conference project. All right. So in this way, when we follow 100% rule, we can actually do the better planning. Nothing will be missed. So if you can achieve 100% these three, if you can do these three, then 100% will be achieved. So if you can do 100% will speakers achieve, participant achieve. So all 100% of this major five components, if achieved, that means our project will be 100%, but achieved. The success will be possible. So this is actually 100% rule. When I am dividing a component into sub-component, I have to identify is there anything missing? Am I missing any component? For that, my venue deliverable will be incomplete. So that way you have to think and plan. So one question for you. This WBS, what you will do as a project manager, is it your responsibility to WBS or you will involve everyone to create this WBS? What do you think?
প্রজেক্ট
Everyone,
ম্যানেজারের স্যার রেসপন্সিবিলিটি স্যার সম্পূর্ণ।
হ্যাঁ, মৌ কি বললেন?
আমি তো বলতেছিলাম মানে everyone সবাই মিলে।
Yes, this is very important. When you are creating or planning, this is not only project manager's role. If you, as a project manager, develop WBS and you push this WBS to your team, you will not get buy-in from your team. They will not feel involved. So, and as a project manager, you are not expert of everything actually. Maybe some people are expert in venue, some are expert in related to food, as per our project here. And some are actually expert in collecting or arranging speakers. So if you involve everyone, then actually you get the better result. As a single person, you cannot do this. This is a simple example, but for big project, it is not possible. So that's why at every point, especially in WBS, this is the core part of project management. Why core part? I will explain a bit later. So you have to involve the whole team to develop this WBS. All right. Okay. So we have understood 100% rule, right? Another very important thing is how far actually we'll divide into subcomponent. If we want, we can actually divide this selection into more subcomponents. Or this group activity, maybe we can divide into more subcomponents. So how far should we go or should we break? Should we decompose? What is the limit? Right? Where we will stop breaking down? Because our target is to, why we are dividing the whole project into smaller components so that we can easily manage. But if you divide this in smaller piece, piece, then what will happen? That management will be again become difficult, and you have to do micromanagement. In project management, we don't want to do micromanagement. All right. So where we will stop breaking down the component. So for that, you have to apply or understand one simple rule, that is, when after breaking, say selection, we are breaking this, say survey. So when we can easily visualize and or understand or estimate to do this survey, what are the activities we need to do, then what are the tasks we need to do to complete this survey, what are the resources we need to do to complete this survey, what time it is required or what duration it is required to complete the survey, what are the risks related to survey, and what are the costs, what will be the cost to do this survey. So these major 4-5 components, if you can clearly estimate, clearly visualize, at that point you should stop the breakdown or decomposing. That is enough. Don't try to decompose in pieces or very small component. Then what will happen? You have to do micromanagement. So this is another technique to understand how far you will break your WBS. All right. So what we practice in project management, we actually try to use some code. For example, conference, we put 1.0 for this component, the main project. Then this subcomponent venue, we tag this component as 1.1. This is 1.2. This is 1.3, right? I think if you search WBS in the internet, you will see a lot of free WBS templates or sample, and everywhere you will see this code. So what will be the code for this? 1.4, and this will be 1.5. And venue, under venue there are two subcomponents, survey and selection. So what will be the code? 1.1.1. This will be 1.1.2. Are you understanding the coding system?
जी sir.
This is known as WBS code. So this term
Then
also
1.2.1, 1.2.2.
right. So this will be 1.2.1. This will be 1.2.2. So this code is unique for every component, so that you can easily actually, what can you do? You can easily identify, seeing this code, we are talking about which component. And also seeing this code, you can easily understand in which level this component exists. So this is known as WBS code. The whole thing is known as WBS, and the code is known as WBS code. All right.
Reza bhai, in case of conference, what should we put? 10 or 1.0?
1.0. This is 1.0.
1.0. Okay.
Okay. All right. So this is WBS code, and this WBS code is very important. Why is important? One thing is you can uniquely identify the packages or components, but another very important thing is there is a term. There is actually, I forgot the term most probably. Let me see here. Okay, so I forgot the term. If I can remember, I will discuss. So let me show the what file.
In
So
Agile, is there any different name of WBS in Agile?
yeah, they actually use at the top they can use epic. Then under epic they will list the features, and the under feature they will list the stories. Generally they follow like this: epic, then features, then user stories. All right. So epic is actually a big thing, and all the features will make the epic, and every feature will have a lot of stories related to that feature. So that way they actually break down.
Okay.
All right. So the whole thing we are doing, the tool we are using breaking down this project into this subcomponent is known as decomposition. Decomposition. So what we are finding here, we are seeing the subcomponent of the whole project. But can you see the detail or understand the detail of menu? There is only one term, right? Just menu. But what is the detail of menu? What will be the content of the menu, and when, which menu will be delivered? All right. What quantity will be the menu delivered to the guest? That is actually not mentioned here. All right. And who will develop the menu? That is also not mentioned. You can see from here this graphical presentation, right? So what we do for describing all these components in a document, we create a separate document. The name of the document is WBS Dictionary. For each component, we describe what this component is, who will this do the component, how much time it will require to complete this component, what will be the cost, what can be the risk. So this detailed thing is collected in a separate document. The name of the document is WBS Dictionary. All right. So we are talking a lot of things here, right? One is WBS, WBS code, and WBS dictionary. Okay. Now, see what we are doing here. There in WBS, there are some components you can put in this shape. What shape? Say like dot 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 shape. And these components are known as planning component. And that means we have not actually detailed down this component. We need to do more planning. That's why sometimes this component is known as planning component. And the whole thing, what we are doing, this is known as, sometimes known as rolling wave planning. Rolling wave planning. All right. That means we are rolling and getting detail of each component. And for subcomponent, that actually, when we are doing this, maybe we have not able to identify those components in detail. So what sometimes we do, we actually keep that in like this shape, dot dot shape, and in later time when we'll get this detail, then we actually put like this. So this is sometimes known as planning component. Another thing we have to understand. Any question?
Reza bhai, regarding rolling wave planning, basically, do you have any time limit? I mean, within 2 to 3 months, something like that?
No, no. So the idea behind rolling away planning is that is actually come from rolling away planning is the near-term things, near-term components you will detail down, the future term, the things are coming in future that you cannot go into detail. So that will be detailed down when the information will be available to you. So that is known as actually rolling wave planning. The near-term things you will detail down, and the future things that is coming in the near future, there is no time limit mentioned. It will vary project to project. For me, in Agile project, each iteration it happens. In a iteration, only those components or those features they are trying to develop, they will detail down that those features into user stories. But the next iteration, user stories, they will not detail down. When they will enter or before entering in the next iteration, they will actually detail down that feature into user stories. So they are actually following rolling planning in each iterations. All right. So there is no actual time limit. It depends.
Thank you, Reza bhai.
last thing I want to discuss, that is actually work package. What is work package? Work package is, this is parent and these two are child. All right. And say these three are child. Panel is child, right? Group activity. Say, for example, we are breaking this group activity into another three components. Say one is, say, we will do some planning game with the participants. And another group activity can be a quiz session. We'll do a quiz session, and who will get the highest mark, we'll give some reward to him. So this is another group activity. And another group activity can be, say, feedback. At the final stage, we will take feedback from the participants. So we can actually subdivide this group activity into three smaller components, right? Okay. So if this is the last component, this is the last component. Last component means this component is not having any child, right? Huh? This is the parent, and the last end is all three childs. This last end is known as work package. All right. So these three will be the work package of group activity. So food, for this food, menu and supplier will be the work package. For speakers, these three will be work package, because these work packages we have not divided further. All right. So the last level of the WBS, last levels component of the WBS is known as work package. All right. So this is very important. Work package means what? That means that there is a package where there are 2, 3, or 5 tasks are there. Which tasks will actually, if we can do or accomplish those tasks, we can complete the work package. So work package means there are some tasks that we need to identify to complete that work package. So if you see this figure, what we are seeing, there is actually, I have not mentioned any task. I have mentioned the components or deliverables. So this is actually deliverable or component oriented breakdown of the whole project. We have not actually identified the task. So in the next stage, what we will do, from each work package, we try to identify what will be the task to complete this work package. For example, survey. What can be the task? What should be the task to complete this survey? One can be find the potential venues, right? Then research the potential venues, right? And then propose the shortlisted venues. So these three activities, if we can do these three activities or tasks, then actually we can complete this deliverable component of venue. Okay. So from WBS, we can actually identify tasks or activities. That activities, if you can do, then we can complete each work package. And if we can complete each work package, we can complete the major component of the project. And if all the major components of the project is completed, then conference project will be successful. So this way, we actually design the project. Okay. So just for the time being, just remember the lower level is the lowest level of WBS is known as work package, and that is not actually divided, that is not having any child.
Reza bhai, if I sum it up my comprehension like that, first of all is do they? I mean the task part is here or not? I mean the last
No.
level is only dealing with task, or last level is dealing with components only or deliverables only?
The last level of here, everything is deliverable. There is no task here.
Exactly.
Please remember, WBS will not contain any task. The lowest level is work package. Work package means what? Task package. That means there are inside tasks, but we have not find out those tasks yet. So WBS will contain only the work package or deliverables or component, not the task.
Okay. The task will follow suit later on.
Yeah, later on, and we'll do that in the schedule management chapter, in schedule chapter, when we'll do the define activities process.
Okay.
Okay.
In agile environment, is there any different name for WBS?
No, there is no different name. They actually, they
10 to
don't use the
15
WBS
question.
name.
10 to 15 question will be coming from agile. That's why I'm referring back always in
Right,
agile.
yes. Yeah. That is
Okay,
very
thank you.
important to refer again and again. You can ask me. So there is no WBS term in Agile. The epic feature and user story they use, and
Yeah.
from user story is the last component of Agile. From that user story, they actually find out the task. What will be the task required to complete that user story? So
Okay.
the concept is actually same. Here we are breaking down the project into work package, and from that work package we are trying to find out the task. In the Agile case, the same thing. They are actually saying we are dividing the epic into features into user stories, and finally we are dividing those user story into tasks. There is similarity actually, and there is a graph in figure in schedule chapter. There I will show how actually those two are related, Agile and predictive.
Thank you, Reza.
Okay,
That clarifies my, confusion. Thank you.
okay. All right. So let me go back to my slides and let me complete this process because most things I have discussed. So create WBS is breaking down the project into smaller components, manageable components. And what we are doing, see, we are taking what is the main input here, project scope statement and requirement documentation. So these two documents are descriptive documents, but we are trying to find out the graphical presentation of the whole scope statement. So this is the input, and what is the main tool? Decomposition, right? Decomposition means what? Decomposing, breaking down. So we are breaking down the big project into smaller components. So that is actually decomposition. This is the main tool. All right. So this decomposition tool we will see in two processes only. One is here, another one we will see in the define activities process in schedule management chapter. All right. So after decomposing, what is I have shown you, we will get WBS, but here WBS is not mentioned. What is mentioned? Mentioned scope baseline. So what is scope baseline? Scope baseline actually consists of three things. One is WBS, another one is WBS dictionary, and first one was a scope statement. Scope statement, this one. So these three documents make up the scope baseline. So scope baseline consists of these three documents: scope statement, WBS, that means graphical representation of the scope, and each component's description will be in WBS dictionary. So these three documents is known as scope baseline. All right. So what is scope baseline? As I mentioned in PMBOK, you will see three baselines. So today we are seeing the first baseline, scope baseline. In schedule chapter, we'll see the schedule baseline. In third chapter, in cost chapter, we'll see the cost baseline. So these are the three main components of project. And I have as frequently time and again I mentioned about this triangle, right? Scope, time, and cost. So in PMBOK, in three chapters, we are in chapter 5, we'll get the scope baseline. In chapter 6, we'll get the schedule baseline. And in chapter 7, we'll get the cost baseline. Why this is baseline? That means based on this, we'll actually try to create our output based on this. This is our boundary. This is our scope. All right. So when you are talking about baseline, that means our scope statement, WBS and WBS dictionary, all are created and approved by the customer. And they approve that this is our requirements. This is our scope. So based on that, we will produce our product, service, or result. So that's why this is baseline. And another reason of naming this as baseline, because based on this baseline, we'll actually measure the performance of the project. Whether we are meeting the scope or we are not delivering up to the mark, we are failing to achieve the scope. So that we'll measure using this baseline. So that's why it is not as known as baseline.
Reza bhai, as long as project managers, I mean, they are within the baseline, they do not have to refer to anybody, right?
Right.
Thank you.
Mostly right. Right, actually. So if something happens that is actually exceeding baseline, then actually they have to escalate that to the upper level. Otherwise, their responsibility to manage this.
Exactly.
All right. So the things I discussed that you will find here is this time I actually finding control account. What is control account? So there is a term in PMBOK, control account. That is actually those who are actually from corporate or enterprise level, they can understand. In the corporate, we use a term cost center. Cost center. And different budget is allocated in different cost centers. So in a project, maybe some component will be come from a cost center, some budget. For example, if a project, say you are dividing into a WBS, right? This is the just I am showing WBS. So if you see maybe hardware budget can come from one cost center. If there are some component of people related, so people budget can be come from another cost center, right? So this is actually known as control account. And this is not actually involved with the work package level. Generally, it actually involved or tag with the upper level. All right. So this is known as control account. And based on that control account, we actually measure, say, আমরা বাংলায় বলি থোক বরাদ্দ করা হয় যে হার্ডওয়্যারের জন্য 5 কোটি টাকা বাজেট করছি আমরা 5 কোটি টাকা বাজেটেড 5 কোটি টাকা so with this control account we can actually control whether that is exceeding the budget targeted budget or not. Even for this component we may set time, say hardware component we need 6 months to deliver in our data center. So that 6 months we can use as control account to control the budget and time for this component and its subcomponents also. And it is not actually tagged with the lower level, it is actually tagged with the upper level. So this is control account. This is actually like the cost center of accounting system. All right, so there are some example in PMBOK. See, value management system, and one component is divided into child, parent, child. So these are the WBS code. This is the main project. This is the major components. These are the sub components, and these are the work package. See, so these two are work package of this. These are the work package. These are the work package. These are not the work package, right? These are actually component or deliverable. But these lowest level are actually known as work package. And this 1.234, these are actually not shown. That only this component is shown in detail in PMBOK as sample. So for your project, you have to develop this. And there are some other examples in PMBOK. You can see for software product release, you can use this. This is just sample, but for your projects, it will vary. The idea, if you understand the idea, you can easily make your WBS. So in WBS, in output, we are getting a scope statement, WBS. Then what WBS dictionary. These three actually known as scope baseline. All right. Okay. So it is 10 minutes past 9. So today actually I want to stop here. All right. So in the next
Okay,
class
sir.
on Monday, we'll actually start from this validated scope process. So in this chapter, we have two processes left. One is validated scope, other one is control scope. So we'll start with validated scope. So for today, we are finished. So if you have any question, you can ask me. I will be here available for 5 minutes.